Hello, Rowan here. So today I have a new altar cloth. Isn't it cute? Let's see how long it takes before I spill wax on this one. Alrighty, welcome, welcome. I have a little bit of tea left. I have a fair amount of mead left, and I have, well, I can't show you this because it would spoil my answers, but I have a tag that we're going to be doing today. It's not my tag. It is a tag started by 78 Puertas, and it is the Tarot Collection Top Decks tag. So this is a tag that is 21 questions about different tarot decks that meet the most, best, or first of your collection. So let's go ahead and get into it because this is going to take a while. I already know that. Let us start with the first deck I ever had. I don't actually have this deck to show you, but the first deck that I ever had was the Pride Tarot. I'll put a picture of it right here. The Pride Tarot I got rid of. It is a collaborative deck between a lot of different, at least 30 different artists, I think, and it's just not my thing. I got it because I am bisexual, pansexual, however you want to put that, and gender fluid, and I was like, oh my gosh, Pride deck, they get us. And it was not for me because of the collaborative aspect of it. There was very little cohesion in the deck, so I passed that one along. Let's move on to number 2, my most recent deck. Okay, so recently I have obtained quite a few decks because life is hard right now, and I have been making impulse purchases. Hush. So the one that is the most recent of all of the decks that I have not yet shown you, and you'll see a couple of those decks in this video, in this tag, but the most recent one of them is the Couture Tarot. This bad boy is large. It is large and in charge. I have edged mine in this beautiful bronzy gold yellow watercolor. This is a collage deck made out of fashion magazines. It's really pretty. I got this one thinking that it would be the collage deck for me, where I'm still getting to know it. I struggle with some of the artistic choices in the cards, but I love the overall energy of this deck, and some of the cards really sing to me, but I need more time to get to know it. Love this Seven of Swords. I don't think it gives Seven of Swords very much, but I love it anyway. It's really pretty. It's really hard to shuffle. I like it. I don't think it's as easy to read as, say, the Ritual Tarot, which is designed to not even need titles on the cards. It's less obvious what each card means. It does have a chunky little guidebook that it comes with. Let me get that out here. Chunky full color guidebook, glossy pages, really nice. This guidebook is hit and miss for me. I haven't read it all the way through, but some of the card meanings that it gives are basically just, the original Rider-Waite-Smith deck means this. I did this instead. But the thing that the artist did doesn't always, like, okay, let me not be mean to the way that they wrote it. It doesn't resonate with me. Let me put it that way. The guidebook doesn't always resonate with me, and sometimes the way that the artist, Megan Skinner, sometimes the way that she words things, just, I think what I would have liked is more of her own voice in the deck, in the guidebook, quite frankly. Less adherence to RWS and more of her meanings in the cards. And I have not read the whole guidebook, so maybe there is more of that in there than I'm giving it credit for, but yeah, that's that. Let's move on to number 3, best colors. So I've got a couple of different decks that I could have shown for this, but in the interest of repeating myself as little as possible, I went ahead and chose this baby, which is the Zeke's Arcana. This deck is pink, teal, purple, beautifulness. It is a bisexual flag with surrealist and nostalgic art. It's pips with style, pips with feeling, however you want to put that. It is almost out of print, if not already, but it's been almost out of print for a while, so I think that there's still distributors who have this deck available. I believe Tarot Stack does if you're in America, and I believe the Zeke's Arcana website may have some editions left. I'm not certain. But I love this deck. It's one of my absolute favorites. I'm obsessed with it. I do not riffle shuffle this deck. It cannot handle being riffle shuffled in my personal experience. But the colors are just to die for. The first time I saw this deck, I fell in love with the color palette and knew I had to have it, and now I do. I've in fact bought this deck twice. I love it so much because the first time I riffle shuffled it and it did not go well for me. So now I don't do that. Let's see. The next deck is Best Faces. So this one was a little bit tricky for me to choose. There were a couple of decks in my collection that I wanted to award this title to, but I used them as the answer to some of my other questions, and there wasn't any wiggle room on some of those others. So the one that I went with for Best Faces is partially tongue-in-cheek, I have to admit that, and that is the Intuitive Night Goddess. So this deck is a collage deck. Here we go. Every card has a nondescript goddess on it. So these women are not specific goddesses, they're just goddess-like, and not all of them have faces, excuse me. Okay, but like the faces are so funny because this is not, I do not believe these, I mean, maybe they were, maybe these women were drawn by the artist, Liz something, let's see, Lindsay Silverman. I don't know why I forget her name. Anyway, Lindsay Silverman, I don't know if she's the one who drew these women and collaged them in, or if they were found elsewhere, but the faces are so facey. Like, they're just giving face. Like, every single card in here is just giving a fuckload of face. Every card that has a face, I should say. Look at that bitch. She is so smart. Like, she's serving! There is cunt for dinner. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, I love the faces in this deck. I think that some of them are really silly. They make me laugh. Some of them really show emotion. Like this, you can't even see her whole face, and what's there is still so emotive. I thoroughly enjoy this deck's artwork. Love the collage of it. Love the women. Now that I look closer at them, I'm not even certain if they're in different art styles or not, because that's how ignorant of things that I am. I'm assuming they are, but they all also look kind of similar, but maybe that's just because the collages make them look similar, like it tricks my eye. This one definitely feels like a different, like, look at this bitch's face! I'm sorry, like, what lemon is she sucking on? I love it! It doesn't always read like the card is, I have edged this deck in green, by the way. It doesn't always read, perfectly. I use this deck, I always say this, I use this deck for communications with Hecatean energy, or Hecatian energy, however you want to pronounce that. So sometimes the faces will take me out of it. I'll be like really serious, doing some serious like self-reflection, like not necessarily shadow work, but like work in the shadows, and like the moon card will come up and I just have to laugh at her stupid pinched little mouth. It's so funny. All right, next one, we have our largest deck. So for me, that has got to be Tarot as color. This deck is big. This deck is big. I cannot, oh, don't do that. Oh, I hate it. Oh, you can't, there's no thumb holes. Ah, I've made a mistake. Okay, hold on. Okay. This way. Always set the box this way. Tarot as color is a abstract paint splotch deck. It was made in the 70s, in the late 70s, and it was originally an art exhibit, is my understanding. That may be false, but my understanding of what this little guidebook details is that this was originally an art exhibit, where the paintings are named after the, what is the, Golden Dawn, the Golden Dawn titles for the tarot cards. I ran out of time. It cut me off at 10 minutes like it always does, and yet somehow I'm always surprised. You'd think I would get better at this. But anyway, this deck is large. It's a big boy. The only way that I can shuffle this is a corner riffle. It's too big for hand over hand unless I go top style, and that does not go well. Let me just try to show you on camera without knocking the camera. I would rather corner riffle shuffle it, thank you. And the way I do that is I split the deck in two, and my hands are large enough that I can just go around the body of the deck, and so at the corner, I'll hold it at the top like this, boink, and drop the corners together. Oh, beautiful. So that's how I shuffle the Tarot is Color, my biggest deck. Next up, we have the smallest, or rather, okay, so this one, the Tarot is Color, this is the largest deck. This is both my longest and my widest. In the original video that 78 Puertas posted, he has both a tall skinny one and a big one. This one is both my longest and my widest. My smallest deck, however, my most petite, is my Tarot of Marseille by Lo Scarabeo. This one is very small, small indeed. This deck is the ibbiest one I have. It's not the smallest one I've seen on the market. The Klimt Tarot is smaller than this. I do believe that the Everyday Witch Tarot, that's the small size, is smaller than this, but it's really small. It's so cute. I mean, it's a Marseille deck. I'm showing you a Marseille deck. Oh, let me be clear. This is the Marseille, because Lo Scarabeo has several decks that are just called Tarot of Marseille. This is the smallest one, and it is by Anna Maria Morsucci and Matteo Ottolini. I am sure I am not doing those names justice, so I hope those artists forgive me, and any Italian person, please understand. I'm American Sicilian. I don't speak Italian. My family lost that a long time ago. I'm so sorry. Anyway, this deck is small. I have not yet carried it in my purse often. I think once I did, but mostly I keep my Rider-Waite poker size in my purse. This one does not have a bag yet, and that's why it's never gone in my purse, because the box makes it a little bit unwieldy, and the closure on this is not secure. I'm sitting here and I'm holding the top of the box. There's nothing in the bottom, and the bottom is still falling out. There's nothing weighing it down, and it still doesn't stay on. So this deck needs a bag in order to live in my purse, but it will get a bag. I will be giving it a bag as well. I also have a pocket thoth that needs a bag too. So, actually, hold on. Let me spend a second and show you this compared to a regular tarot card, just so you can see how small it is. This is a card from another Lo Scarabeo deck. I have the Surrealist Tarot. So this is the comparison there in sizes. Right. Alrighty. So my next query, one moment. Let me put this away. Boink. Boink. Okay, next up we have the best court cards. Ooh, this one gave me a run for my money. Okay, so in the end, I had to go with a very boring answer, and that is the Bianco Nero. This is one of my favorite decks, actually. Not just because it, is special in any way because of the artwork. The artwork's beautiful, but it's basically just a Rider-Waite Smith clone done in black and white with occasional forays into a Visconti style. But it is, these are the quartz. Let me start. Oh, no, these are not the quartz. This is what the non-court cards look like, right? It's Rider-Waite-Smith. It's black and white. Oh, this is a trimmed version of this deck, by the way. I have cut mine up. It normally has a border that goes around it. This is basically Trump size now because I've cut the borders off. And it normally has rounded corners. I've left mine pokey because I think it looks cool as hell like this. So this is what the deck looks like. Now let's take a look at the court cards, right? Why don't we? So let's go to the first of the pages. I've separated them out here in the back. There we go. Okay. So we have our pages. The Page of Wands looks over his shoulder at his staff. He notices the little green that is coming out of it. He realizes the opportunities that present themselves, right? So he has just begun to notice the spiritual power, the life force moving through the world. Then we have the Page of Cups. He's side-eyeing his own creativity here. So he hasn't really fully embraced his creative energy or his emotional capacity and deriving joy from that creativity, but he's contemplating it, right? He still has his silly little hat on. You can see that his hat has a face. So he's frivolous and silly, but he's not committed to that which could make him great just yet. Then we have our Page of Swords, wielding his sword with confidence, knowing he's about to strike clean, strike correctly, because he has made the right choices to get himself here. Perhaps he's a little cocky with his knowledge, but he will win this fight. And finally, we have our Page of Pentacles. He is guarding the pentacle. To me, the Page of Pentacles is all about slow, careful decisions based on defense. So the Page of Pentacles is all about defense to me, where the the Page of Pentacles is also like a card of learning in a way that the rest of the pages aren't. Well, I guess the Page of Swords is really, really about learning, but the Page of Pentacles is the one that I associate with bookworm energy, because to me, the Page of Swords is somebody who already thinks they know enough to not need to read the book, where the Page of Pentacles is somebody who humbles themselves before the authors who came before them, but is also very defensive, like him sitting here holding on to the material world, protecting it, but also bearing himself sensually. Love it. Then we have our Knight of Wands. We've got this rearing horse showing this impulsive energy. The motion of motion, the fire of fire, if you will. The Knight of Cups, this knight contemplates his artistic development, his creative development, his emotional development, and he's learned to not move so quickly. His horse steps slowly and confidently because he has slowly but surely started to learn to use his emotions for the better of himself. So to me, the Knight of Cups is somebody who's a little bit smarmy, cocky, but not because they're confident in their knowledge, but because they are confident in their ability to woo you, I guess. And then we get to the Knight of Swords, who is all about action, 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 making the right decisions and acting on them. I think before I kind of got the Page of Swords confused with the Knight of Swords. So to me, the Page of Swords is somebody who is going to take definitive action, but this card is not about action. This card is about learning. Like, the pages are about learning to me, and the swords are all about knowledge. So this is somebody who has the knowledge, or thinks that they have the knowledge, perhaps. This is somebody who needs to humble themselves in order to learn, because they already know enough that they can trick themselves into thinking they know everything. Meanwhile, this shows the quick, decisive action of the Knight of Swords. So where our Knight of Wands is rearing up, ready to go in an almost reactive manner, our Knight of Swords is not reactive, but simply active. And we have our Knight of Pentacles, who is not going anywhere. Oh, okay, wow, I'm getting my pages and my knights so confused. This is what 2 glasses of mead does to you. All right, so the Page of Pentacles, he's grasping onto his understanding of the material world and what little resources he has at this time. Meanwhile, our Knight of Pentacles, this is all about the defense of the monetary world. He's got his shield here covering him. His horse is not moving. This is a character who does not make a move unless it is necessary for self-defense, or for defense of the king, I should say. Then we move on to our Queen of Wands. I like this interpretation of the Queen of Wands because in the original Rider-Waite-Smith, the Queen of Wands has her legs open, implying an open sexuality, which I do get from this card because of the way her dress is opened, but her legs are closed, indicating that while she's sexual, not for you. I love that. So love this. Our next queen is the Queen of Cups. She is moved. Like the way her hair is, the way she's leaning forward, her clothes are all moving with the wind, showing her emotional movement. She is easily moved by that which is around her. She's empathetic, almost to a fault. She's also intuitive. Her cup is capped, and yet she still knows what is inside of it. I love this card. And then the mermaid's next to her, indicating that she is submerged in the waters that surround her. And then we move on to our Queen of Swords. She's got the butterfly behind her head on the throne, as well as the crown of butterflies, indicating her own ability to transform knowledge into power in this case. So the butterfly represents knowledge because of the way it flits through the air, I guess. I don't know. But she's got her sword in front of her, positioned, ready to strike, indicating that she is maybe a little bit overly cut off from the world because of her own harshness. But her hand is still open. She's trying to understand those around her, but she's also defensive towards them. See? And while she is sexually available, sort of like our Queen of Wands, it's in an absent-minded way rather than a deliberately provocative, almost trap. Like this card gives me, I'm going to trap you with my sexuality. This card gives me, I am so unfazed by my own sexuality right now. And then we get to the Queen of Pentacles. So this card right here is the reason that I chose this. I'm going on and on about these court cards because I thought long and hard about this. And this Queen of Pentacles is the reason that I chose the Bianco Nero for our court cards, because she is feral looking. I almost chose this deck for best faces because look at that. But she is barely wearing clothes. She is leaning on her ram over here. She has her pentacle in her lap, which is, again, barely clothed. Her hair is moving in the wind, but it's wild. It's slightly tamed. She's tamed herself, but nobody else can tame her. At her feet, there is a jackrabbit with big ol' ears, indicating that while he is prey, he is the best prey to live, I guess. She's got pears and peaches on her throne behind her. Like, I love this Queen of Pentacles so much. Let's quickly move through the kings. I've taken up way too much time here. King of Wands, Salamander, Lion. He's kingly, he's wandly. I wish there was a little bit more action in this card, but because the wand mirrors the flames that are on his throne, the action reveals itself not in the king, but in his wand. King of Cups. Here we have our, we've got the octopus here, which to me indicates an emotional intelligence that is almost alien. Like, this is somebody who has such a lock on their own emotions that they are almost alien to him at this point. He looks out on the ship that is facing tumultuous waters, and he has separated himself from it and waits for the ship to find its way to shore before he lends a hand, because he knows not to engage himself in other people's troubles. This could also be him looking out for the ship that he knows is part of his domain and he needs to protect, but he also knows that at this time the best that he can do is hope that the people on the ship are well equipped enough to handle their own problems. Our King of Swords has the butterfly again, but he's also got some maidens around him. I'm not really sure what they're meaning to symbolize. Maybe that's like a Gemini thing because swords is air energy. Yeah, we're going to go with that. But he is very airy. He leans back. His sword is in front of him, but it's also in an unusable position, which to me indicates that he is brave enough to, like, he knows when he is safe and when he is not. He knows when to raise his sword, kind of thing. And our King of Pentacles. What are the other cards here? How did these end up in the back? I don't even know. Our King of Pentacles, he is very stern-faced. He is staunch. So normally to me, The King of Swords is a card that I associate with authoritarianism, but in this deck, the King of Pentacles is giving me that authoritarian vibe. Perhaps because he has gold sickness. Is that what it's called? Gold sickness? When the elves in Lord of the Rings go, or not the elves, when the dwarves in Lord of the Rings go mad because of money. Yeah, that's what he looks like he has going on here. He knows he's got a lot of things that people want to steal from him, and so he doesn't trust the people that come before him. Let me actually take a moment to just sort of kind of shuffle these into the deck. You have to deal with me. This is my channel and I do what I want. Just kind of sort of shuffle these back into the deck. This is, I've only trimmed a handful of decks. 2 tarot decks and 1 oracle deck, and this is the second best trimming that I've done. Of the 3, this is the most middling, but also, I like this trim job. I think I did a great trim job on it. It's smooth, it still riffle shuffles, almost as well as it did when I first got it, or rather, a couple of weeks after I first got it, once I had broken it in. I genuinely fucking love this deck. I could have used the Bianco Nero for several other prompts, but I went with it for the best quartz. So next, yeah, there's a whole tag video we're doing. I know, we just spent nearly 10 minutes, I think, talking about this one deck. We're going to move on now, and we're going to try to move quickly. I don't know that we will, but we're going to try. The next tag, oh my god, if I could get this in. Its sharp corners make it so difficult to get in and out of its little bag. That's the only reason I've ever thought about rounding these corners out, because, well, no, that's not the only reason. It also pokes me in the hands, but that's less concerning than my inability to put it away. Anyway, my most worn out deck. So I don't actually have any decks that are really worn out. Oh, excuse me. Gross. That's the mead talking. I don't have any decks that are like really, really worn out. I do have a very old deck, but it's still in great condition. I've only been reading tarot for a little while, like, a year. I've only been reading tarot for a year and a couple of months. Yeah, wow. It feels like so much longer. But because of that, even my oldest deck is still in really good condition. However, I do have a most worn-in deck. This is my Antique Anatomy Tarot. I keep it in this velvet duochrome pouch. I don't know if you... Oh, the green to gold. I guess in this case it's triple chrome, because over here there's like a blue color almost, and then you get the green, and then you get the gold. Anyway, who cares? This is the Antique Anatomy Tarot. I do not love the cardstock that I have edged it in the same color as the fronts. I do not love the cardstock of this deck. For one, the way it was cut, it shuffles best face up rather than backs up. A lot of my mass market decks do, though. That seems to be a trend with mass market decks. Whatever way their factories cut their decks, they should fix that. Shuffles better that way. Now let me show you a comparison for the backup shuffling so you can hear the difference. Did you hear that? Clump, 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 clump. Clump, 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 clump. It's behaving a little bit better than normal because it's on camera, but it is not a great shuffler. Look at that. It always does that to me. Meh. However, this deck... God, I've only had one glass of mead, I really swear. This deck, I have worn in. I have not worn it out yet, but I have worn it in. This deck is one of my favorite decks to bring with me other places if I know I'm going to be reading for people, because it's a very popular deck. Every time I bring it out to read, somebody picks it, and usually more than one person does. It's really pretty, and it's also pippy. And when I say pippy, I mean it is pips. It's a pip deck. And so, let me show you. I'm sitting here shuffling, but let me show you the deck. Everybody, I'm sure, and their mother is already vaguely aware of the Antique Anatomy Tarot, but for the sake of clarity, I will show you these pips and the flowers. The flowers are made up. They don't mean anything. Claire Goodchild, the artist who made this deck, says so in the guidebook. But the colors are important to some degree, and it's anatomical drawings, it's florals, it's beautiful, but my cardstock has softened up quite a bit. It was really stiff, and like I said, it doesn't shuffle well. Oops, I just bumped my camera. But I live in a very humid environment. Not as humid as, say, Key West, Florida or Costa Rica, but pretty freaking humid. I mean, like, 50% humidity for us is a normal day. So this deck has absorbed quite a bit of water, and it is so much softer than it was when I first bought it. I don't think y'all are going to be able to hear it, but I can hear it and feel it when I shuffle. There's this almost cloth-like sound and texture that cards get when they get worn in. Yeah, I don't think that's going to pick up on camera, but it's, oh, it's so good. It's so good. This deck has been worn in, and it is my most worn in deck because it is one of the ones that early on in my tarot collecting days, and when I say early on, I mean like 9 months ago, this deck was well loved. Let me put it that way. I used this one a lot. Alrighty. So next prompt is number 9. Out of 21, we need to pick up some pace. Most esoteric. So this one, I had to go with the same answer that 78 Puertas offered, which is the THOTH Tarot. I only have a small copy of the THOTH. This is the pocket Swiss size. But this deck is the most esoteric that is in my collection. The next best choice for this category would have been Tarot is Color because it has those Golden Dawn titles, but this deck has so much symbolism packed into Lady Frieda Harris's artwork on every single card, even the pips, that I had to go with this one. The THOTH Tarot is just, it's so full of esoteric reference, and I almost said esoteric nonsense, but that's not fair. I love this queen. I love this Queen of Discs. Hoot and holler for this Queen of Discs. I'm sorry. Yeah, esoteric. I don't really have anything more to say to that. Everybody knows the THOTH Tarot by Aleister Crowley and Lady Frieda Harris. Honestly, Aleister Crowley did very little in this deck. I've read the guidebook. It's not much. Anyway, I mean, that's not fair. I haven't read their letters back and forth. Do not roast me for my ignorance. I don't actually know how little or how much he did. But I feel like writing a guidebook for a tarot deck is a lot less difficult than making the cards. And I say this as somebody who is currently making an Oracle deck guidebook. I've already made the Oracle deck, and I'm struggling with the guidebook, and it's still easier than making the cards was. IMO. That's me. Next up, we have the best for shadow work. This one, I honestly almost picked the Bianco Nero again because the black and white nature of this deck makes it really good for shadow work, and the way the artist has drawn the faces. I almost picked this one for best faces, which we will get to. No, we did that one already. I said the Intuitive Night Goddess. Yes, this one I almost picked for best faces as well. But for best for shadow work, I decided to go with the Somnia Tarot. And the reason I have chosen this one, it is, a lot of people use it for shadow work because it gives them the heebie-jeebies. I use this one for shadow work because it is photography. Because it is sculpture and photography together, this deck to me screams information, knowledge, wisdom that can only be found by exploring the illusion of reality, I guess is the best way to put that. The illusion of reality, meaning the falseness of a photography scene and the way it's meant to capture a created reality, much in the same way film is an illusion, so too is photography. And I like the way it speaks to the truth in the facade. So like the tower here, like this guy strapped a beat up dollhouse to his back and then set it on fire. And I heard this from someone else, so it may not be true, but I've heard that this right here is the photographer posing in this shot. Don't know if that's true or not, but it's this the Tower, it's not about the literal reality of having a dollhouse on your back or having a metaphorical house on your back. It's about the way it feels to know that you cannot do enough to fix this, that nothing that you do is going to fix this and you're going to get hurt. And it speaks to that reality that's in the illusion that it presents, and that makes it really good for shadow work. One of my favorite cards, we've already passed it, but one of my favorite cards in this deck is the Justice card, because of the way this Justice is being pulled over, indicating that right now your idea of what's fair is just false. I like that this deck frequently presents me with a shadowier side of the interpretation of the cards. This Two of Cups here makes me think not of pouring out emotions for somebody else, but of over pouring out emotions, of giving too much of yourself until your cup runs dry. And like the likelihood of doing that when you're in puppy love. So like I thoroughly enjoy this deck for shadow work. I don't find it to be particularly shadowy in that I don't find it to be like the Deviant Moon where it's like really dark and edgy. I just find it to be genuinely shadowy, like the kind of shadows that you find on a perfectly normal sunny day with regular cloud coverage. That's what this deck speaks to. These are the shadows of everyday life. Love it. Next up, we have the best backs. So this I could have given to another deck that's going to come up for a different answer, but in the interest of highlighting as many decks as possible, I'm going to go with the Hush Tarot because I hate this deck, and the best backs is just about the only compliment that I can give to it, other than that the artwork is pretty, even if it doesn't make any sense to me. The backs are stunning. We're not even here for the face. I mean, here's what the deck looks like, you know? It's pretty. It's rot. It's despair. It's edginess in the forest, on the forest floor. It's sexy women and one or two men. Whatever. Moving on. The backs. The backs are really pretty. I love them. They look like a tarot deck. They look like an occult card deck. I mean, this is not an occult card. I don't know. Here, look at the different backs. Why did I do that? Anyways, love these. I love the backs. I love the design of the backs. I love the way these backs look with other oracle decks. I always store all of my decks back up, but especially this one. I love the Hush Tarot's design. I think it's a beautiful deck. I just wish it made more sense. So that is my best backs. Next up, we have best cardstock, and this is the one that could have won best backs, and that is the Gay Marseille. So this is printed, this is the first deck other than my own oracle deck that I made on linen cardstock. This is the first deck that I ever bought that wasn't mine that had linen cardstock. Can you see the texture? Can you? I don't know. A little bit? Maybe. These backs are stunning, absolutely gorgeous. I'm sure you can understand why I like them. They speak to a very classical tarot energy. Boop, boop. But this deck is thin, but not too thin. Flexible, but not too flexible. It's got good, can you hear that? Oh, love that. Yes, ma'am. ASMR. Really good cardstock. Really good cardstock. Love the experience of shuffling this deck. It has not bowed despite my insanely curved riffle shuffle. And that's a thing that I really enjoy about linen decks is they don't bow as easily. I mean, they do bow, but they don't bow as easily as a non-embossed deck because I guess the embossing gives them a little bit more flexibility almost. But yeah, that's the Gay Marseille. Let me show you what some of the cards look like. So we start with, here we have the Alternative World card. It came with two of them. This is the one I've taken out. But it's a Marseille deck. It's got some really great, vibrant colors. And it's got a lot of, I say this not as a slur, but as a reclamation of as somebody who has had this slur hurled at them before. It's got a really great fag energy, and I love that. I probably shouldn't have said that on YouTube. Oh well. I love this deck. I think it's great. I love the cardstock. I love the experience of using it. And later on, we're going to have another question that this deck ties the answer for, ties as an answer for. So that's the Gay Marseille. This is by Charlie Claire Burgess. This is a deck by the same artist who did the Fifth Spirit Tarot. So if you like that one, you will probably love the Gay Marseille. It is available for purchase on Charlie Claire Burgess's website, even though it was a Kickstarter. It is, I believe, on pre-order right now. So you can get your own copy of it. Next up, we have the Best Soft Silky Touch. So for this one, I chose the Lilifer Tarot, specifically because of the way the question was phrased, soft, silky touch. Can you hear that? Oh, I love the way this deck sounds. I'm sorry for the ASMR. I'm sure that made some people uncomfortable. But this deck feels really good in the hands. It's got a thin matte cardstock that feels like it doesn't have any sort of coating on it. It feels so nice to touch. It's soft. It's silky. It's smooth. It is smooth, baby. I don't even want to say like butter because it's like something better than butter. Oh, and it ties for another. You know, let me not be coy. Let me just go on to the next. Let me show you. Well, okay. Let me be nice and show you some of the Lilifer Tarot so that if you go, ooh, I want a deck that feels like that, you know what you're going to get. Right? So it's watercolor. It's supposedly very intuitively made. That's what the artist says in the guidebook. I really enjoy the artwork. I enjoy all the colors. This one could have been my best colors deck. Did I even get to my best? Oh, I did, the Zeke's Arcana. We talked about that. Yeah, we did. I have not edged this deck because I can't figure out what color I want to edge it in or if I want to edge it at all, so it has remained bare. But that is the Lilifer. It makes a wonderful tactile, haptic experience for me. And the next one is the Best Sound When Shuffled. And so this one could have been a... this one could be a tie between the Lilifer and the Gay Marseille and the Star Power Tarot because they all make different amazing sounds when you shuffle them. This one makes a linen swish, this one makes that snappy sound, and this one is highly glossy and very flexible. So it makes a thwapping noise that is... Here, let me just show you. You hear that? Thwap. This one's a great shuffler. This is possibly the best shuffler I have in my collection. The Lilifer might be a close second. And the only reason this one wins is because the glossiness of it makes the cards come together really quickly, where the Lilifer is matte and it sort of sticks together a bit more. Oh, that's so satisfying. The Lilifer is probably actually my #1 choice for this category, but this deck is like the high gloss finish of it almost makes it waterproof, which gives it a sound that my other decks don't have. I only have one other deck that is even close to this glossy, and we'll get to that one in a minute. But the artwork is very busy. It's a little bit of digital collage, a lot of bit of digital drawing, or I assume this is digital. It looks pretty digital to me. My husband likes to say that this deck, I live in Southeast Texas. My husband likes to say that this deck reminds him of South Padre Island, like a smoke shop in South Padre Island. He specifically says not Galveston and not Corpus Christi, South Padre. So if you know Texas and you know our coastline, make of that what you will. So the Star Power Tarot is my best sound when shuffling. Let me put away these other decks too before we go any further forward. All right, so my next prompt here, and I say my, it's not my thing, but the next prompt here is most misunderstood. Now, 78 Puertas used a deck that is misunderstood overall by all people, and he went with the THOTH Tarot. Now, I do agree that that is probably the most misunderstood deck of all, but I'm going to go with my most misunderstood deck. So the deck that I most misunderstand when I try to use it. And that is easily the Wanderer's Tarot. This I got, this was a secondhand purchase I got from Riffle in Time, Cassandra's shop. And this is the back. Actually, I forgot that this is highly glossy too. This is almost as, so this deck is very glossy. And then I've got one other deck that's also really glossy in my collection, but the Star Power is still the glossiest. This deck I frequently misread because it changes the suits. Well, it changes one of the suits. So we've got knives. We've got moon. It changes. Okay, I said one. It changes cups to moons, right? It changes pentacles to stones. It changes swords to knives. And then it changes fire to feathers. So wands to feathers. This deck is so confusing when I try to use it. I literally don't know what it's trying to tell me every single time. I need to do some dedicated work with this deck. I have not given it enough of my energy because I have other decks in my collection that have caught my attention more than this one at this time. Eventually, it's also changed the names of the courts. So it's got the Philosopher. Oh, crap. Let me see if I can do this off the top of my head. It has the Philosopher, the Prophet, the Wanderer, and I think it might just be the Queen. Let me see. Hold on. Let's just keep going. Philosopher. Oh my god. Give me some court cards, baby. Jesus. Goddess. Instead of Queen, it has Goddess. So it's Philosopher, Prophet, Goddess, and Wanderer. And Wanderer, I think, is meant to be the king. I don't know. This deck is really confusing to me. I have no idea what the ranking is on the courts. Some of the cards, I think, like, based on the backs, I think they go one direction, but based on the fronts, I think they go another direction. Like, this deck is just all over misunderstood by me, and I don't get what it's trying to tell me. It is speaking a language that I do not know, and at this time, I feel like all I have done is take the wrong messages from it. So I don't use it very often. It needs more focus from me than I can currently give it because my mind is occupied with other things at this time. So that's the Wanderer's Tarot. Next, we have the most ancient or historical. Now, I don't collect decks for, like, I have specifically tried not to collect decks just because they're historical or they're part of the zeitgeist. I have tried to collect decks that I will use based on my interests. So I don't have very many that I have just because of historical value or just because they're old. However, my mother gave me this deck. This is the Art Nouveau Tarot. This is no longer in print. Yes, there are Art Nouveau Tarots on the market that are called the Art Nouveau Tarot, but they are not this Art Nouveau Tarot. This is trump size, so it's smaller than regular standard tarot. And this was printed in the late 80s or early 90s. I don't remember which. And it is out of print now. So this is my oldest deck. It's in great condition. My mother only used it a little bit, as far as I can tell, before she stopped reading tarot, and she gave it to me, and I have some complaints with this deck. It's very white heteronormative, and so it's also, all the courts are stories, and I don't like that. Like, it takes you on a story from 1 to 10, or from ace to 10, and it's all heterocentric. All of the stories are a man and a woman building something together, making something together, starting a family, building a house, whatever the fuck. So I've got my issues with it as a queer person, but I love the artwork nonetheless. I think it's really goofy. I love how realistic the court cards and the majors are, and then you get, like, you get these for the majors, right? This is the artwork for the majors. And then you get this for the pips, and I just think it's so funny. I love this deck. It is not going anywhere. It is sentimental through and through. It was my mother's, and it is now mine, and so not only will I never trim it, which I did originally think about doing, but I will also never get rid of it. So that is my most ancient or historical deck. It's not very old at all, but that's mine. Next up, we have the most surprising. This one's embarrassing, okay? So I'm trying to learn Thoth, right? And Thoth is not difficult, but there's a lot to it. It's very esoteric. It's got a lot of really heady shit. And I don't like Aleister Crowley. I don't like the way he writes. I'm not sure where the camera cut me off, but I was saying that I don't like Aleister Crowley. I don't like his voice. I don't like who he is as a person. And I don't like reading his writing because I don't like his writing. So I'm reading Lon Milo Duquette's book about the Thoth. But I wanted another perspective to help balance it out. And if I'm not going to go to Crowley or Lady Frida Harris, I thought to myself, okay, what's the best way for me to learn Thoth from a non-Thothian perspective? Or rather, a Thoth perspective that has its own bend. And one of the most popular markets on the deck, or popular decks on the market for this is really embarrassing, guys, because I swear to God, while this is not my vibe, it also tells you a lot about who I have been as a person throughout my life. And that's the Tarot of Vampyres by Ian Daniels. I bought this deck for the guidebook, which is great. I knew the guidebook was going to be great. It's fabulous. I'm having such an easier time understanding Thoth with this guidebook. But the thing that's surprising about this deck is that even though, it's knotted, excuse me. Even though the artwork is really, it's giving Underworld, like the movie series, it's, let me show you. I hand sewed this red velvet and black bag. You can tell it's hand sewn. I'm not a good hand sewer. But I did make this bag for it, and I think it's perfect. I have edged this deck already. I did it as a bonding exercise with this beautiful crimson color. And the artwork, like I said, this is my other super glossy deck. The artwork of this deck, like, do you not agree with me? This looks like the Underworld movie series, but like made art. This is vampires and werewolves feuding with each other, being sexy on screen, giving off that late 90s energy. I love it so much. And I didn't think that I would. That's what's surprising about this deck. I saw it so many times, and I bought it for the guidebook, but at the end of the day, this kind of speaks to my inner teenager who was, like, I'm emo. Let me just put that out there. Like, some people are goth. I am not goth. I'm not cool enough to be goth. I am emo. I was emo when I was a teenager, and even though I try to be more than that now, at the end of the day, I am still an emo bitch. And this deck is emo through and through. This deck is so Interview with a Vampire. This deck, oh, excuse me, this wine. It's not wine, it's mead. This deck is so Anne Rice don't write fan fiction about my vampires fucking. This deck is so before Twilight vampires, and I love it. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I fucking love this deck. Working with it just makes me laugh. It's really good for shadow work. It's really good for everyday readings if you have a sense of humor. Look at this Eight of Skulls. He's his fucking mustache. Yeah, so this deck surprised me. I didn't think I would actually like reading with it, but I do. And I don't, every time I scan in the cards and like glue them into my little tarot journal, I get really embarrassed because it's not artwork that is my aesthetic, but it speaks to my soul anyways, and so that surprised me. I didn't realize I was this cringy, but I am. And quite frankly, I embrace it. It's fine. It's cute. People like that about me. They're wrong for it, but they like that about me. Anyways, we're moving on to our best purchase story. So I've got a couple of fun purchase stories here. Some of them would dox me, some of them wouldn't. But at the end of the day, the one that I decided to share is a sentimental purchase story. And I've hinted at this before, but the Fountain Tarot. This deck I bought on the eve of my wedding night. So I think I bought this deck maybe 2 days before my wedding, because I think I got it the eve of my wedding night, if I remember correctly. And the reason that I purchased this deck is because fountains have a significance to my husband's family that I don't want to go into, because it's like, I don't want to give too much information away about his family, but fountains have a significance to his side of the family, and so I bought this deck because I was joining his side of the family, you know, like, I was joining his family, and it was sort of a celebration, and he loves the artwork in this deck. I'm just sitting here holding the box talking about it. Let me show you the cards. I love the artwork in this deck. This is his favorite of all of the decks in my collection, as far as I'm aware, and I will, as long as we're not divorcing, I'm going to love this deck. And, honestly, even if we did divorce, I'd probably find my way back to it eventually. This High Priestess is one of my favorite High Priestess cards. And, the Moon card in this deck is one of my favorite Moon cards. The Hermit is one of my favorite Hermits. I hate the Strength card. I'm sorry, I do. I hate the World card. I also hate the Hanged Man. And the Seven of Cups. Ugh. But some of this, this Chariot is so good, especially because it kind of mirrors. Hold on, let me find it. Did we pass it already? We may have even passed it already. Hold up. Slow down. She don't love you like I love you. Here it is. Nope, that's the Five of Coins. Excuse me. We're going to go through this whole damn deck. There it is. Okay, so the reason I love this Chariot card so much is because within the same deck, the Chariot card and the Death card mirror each other, indicating that your control of will is equivalent to being able to control death, which obviously you cannot do when you control your own will, but like the idea of that power being there, super cool. Love this deck. But yeah, I bought it in a corny fit of sentimentality. So that's the Fountain Tarot. And the next prompt that we have is the Always for Self readings. I didn't really know how to interpret this prompt. I don't have any decks that I would only use for myself that I would never use for somebody else. I don't have any decks that I always go to for myself. Like, if I'm trying to speak to, like, trying to get answers from me, from my shadow self, my inner child, my higher self, I have specific decks for each of those that I'll go to. So it took me a long time to think about this one. What deck would I reach for if I just wanted to talk to me? The Star Power Tarot. I know everybody who watches my channel is so maybe not sick of hearing about this deck, but aware of my love for this deck. Ever since I got it, it has just taken over my life. And so this is the only deck that I just had to choose for 2 answers, because it just is that bitch. This is the deck that I use when I'm trying to talk to myself. This is the deck that I pull out when I just need Rowan's opinion on something. This is the deck that I pull out when I need to follow my own inner guidance, when I need to trust my own perspective on things, when I need to look inwards. This deck is just, for whatever reason, it just clicked with me, and it is good for that. I don't think it has anything to do with the deck in particular. I just think that me and this deck have a lot in common in vibes. I too am a smoke shop in South Padre, so I love the Star Power. Next, let's take a look here. We have the most difficult to master. So tarot in general, all around, esoteric practices are really difficult to master. Anything is just about impossible to master. I don't believe that mastery is an achievement. I believe it is a process. Mastery is something that you do for your entire life. You never become a master. You just sort of do mastery, and then people call you a master. But are you really? Anyway, hold on. Let me drink some more alcohol. So my most difficult to master deck. with all this hemming and hawing. The one that for me is, and I didn't go with the Wanderer's Tarot for this one on purpose, because the Wanderer's Tarot is hard to understand. This deck is easy to understand, but hard to master. And that is my Jonasa, Jonasa Jaus 7th edition. Sorry, I always forget that it's pronounced differently, and so I have to correct myself. The backs are this gorgeous purple color. I have edged mine in a similar purple color. This deck is out of print. I'm really sorry about that. This is the second out of print deck that I've mentioned, but the reason that this one I feel is so hard to master is because it uses the Marseille tradition of card meanings while giving it an original set of artworks that do not adhere to the Marseille tradition. This deck is hard. And I do mean hard in like street hard, like this deck would beat me in a fight. I have no question about that. But because ever since I first got it, it's really read easily for me in that I could rely on the Rider-Waite-Smith interpretations of the cards and understand what it was trying to say. But now that I know how to read Marseille a little bit better, this deck has opened up whole new worlds. So in the Marseille tradition, you follow eye lines. You follow the directions, the relations between the cards and how they're laid. And this deck really gives you a lot of room to play with that. I could have used this for best faces because of that aspect about this deck. But it's so untraditional that it is impossible to master for me. This is a deck that I could work with my entire life and still not feel like I was doing it justice. And so for that, I have to give it the most difficult to master. Not out of all tarot traditions, this, that, and the other, but out of the decks that I have worked with, this has been the one that has made me, it's caught me, but held me back at the same time, if that makes sense. So we're almost done. Our last prompt. Oh my gosh, I've been filming so long, I just want to go hang out with my husband. The last prompt that we have is the best overall. Now, I could have picked the Star Power Tarot because that's the only one that got more than one answer. So this is my honorable mention for this prompt. Excuse me. But let me, for the sake of showcasing another deck that I have recently acquired that I think has, yeah, it's risen to the top of my rankings rapidly. I have put it in this bag, which I originally made for another deck that I have taken out of my collection now. But this is the Zerner Farber Tarot. It is a reprint of an older deck that I think was called like the Fantasy Tarot or Fantastical Tarot. I don't even know. I don't know. It was big. It had big borders. This one does not have borders. It's little. It's Trump size. It has gold edging. It's mass market. This deck I think is like $30. It's got a great, huge guidebook. The cardstock is sturdy, but still flexible. Because it's mass market, it's very impressive that it has this matte gold gilding. It's a matte finish, but the cards are really slippy, so they slide past each other really well. It's not the world's best shuffler, but it's also not a bad shuffler. It's a good shuffler. Watch. Okay, that was a bad example because I'm a bad shuffler, but that has nothing to do with the deck. Let's try that again. See? Very even distribution of the cards. It does bend quite a bit. It has a huge bow in it, and it has since the very first time that I shuffled it. I have not shuffled this deck enough to warrant how much of a bow it has for how new it is. I don't know if it's even showing properly, but you can... In real life, you can really see the little womp womp, the little 3 shape that a Riffler's deck gets. But because it is small, because it is sturdy, and because it is gold gilded, and let me show you the artwork some more, because it is a Rider-Waite-Smith style done in this gorgeous fabric quasi collage. I don't even know if it uses fabric, but I think it also uses like paper cutouts or perhaps digital collage on top of fabric. I'm not sure. I don't know how they made this deck. The guidebook hints at it, but from what I've read so far, it doesn't give details. But this deck is really easy to read with. It's Rider-Waite-Smith inspired without being an exact clone. It brings its own energy to each card. This deck is an all-arounder, man. I don't know what to tell ya. I really enjoy it, and it's been the deck I've been carrying in my purse lately, even over my Rider-Waite-Smith poker size. It's still small. The bag is a little bit too big for it because, again, it was made for another deck, but I don't care. Several of my bags are slightly too big for the decks that they hold because I'm not good at measuring, and that's on me. But I love this deck. I have used it so much since I got it. I have bonded with it immediately. This was an impulse purchase that was planned. This was one of those things where I knew I wanted it, but I was saving it for when I needed to buy something for emotional stabilization, and my husband took me to impulse purchase this one after we had a very serious conversation that left me very anxious. And so he's a sweetheart. He is too precious for this world. Maybe not too good for this world, but definitely too precious for this world. The man is flawed, let's be real here, but enough trash talking my husband while at the same time saying sweet things about him. That's the tag. Those are all of my 21 top decks from my tarot collection. Thank you so much to 78 Puertas for originally making this video, and I'm so glad, or for originally making this tag, and thank you to Kelly Bear, and to, who else did I see make this before? Let's see, Tyrannosaurus Rex has done this tag, Cozy Corner Craft has done this tag, Kelly Bear has done it. Who was the original person I saw do it, though? Oh my goodness. Musings by Masha. She was the first one that I saw do this. So yeah, thank you to all of those great creators for spreading this tag around so that it would find its way to me, so that I could also do it, and so I could subscribe to 78 Puertas channel, because they have a lot of great Marseille decks that they show off. And as somebody who lives in Southeast Texas, it's probably a good idea for me to learn a little bit more Spanish via tarot. So we're going to do that. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me. We've been here for way too long. I'm going to let you get back to the rest of your day. I'm going to finish my meat and go hang out with my husband. I love you. Bye. Wait, I'm a liar. Hold on. I didn't even get it out of my bag before I started filming this section because I need to talk about it. I made an oracle deck. I mentioned it before, but this is the Mixed Metaphor, Mixed Media Oracle deck. It is a collage-based oracle deck that utilizes, well, mixed media, acrylic, pen, watercolor, and collage. It combines concepts, so you get 2 keywords for every card, at least. Some of them have more keywords in the art. But the deck is meant to help you to connect disparate or reconnect existing connected ideas in order to facilitate creative thinking. So this deck is meant to help you to tackle the complexities of everyday life and of everyday introspection through the connections that it makes with its key phrases and keywords. This is not the final version of this deck. The final version of this deck is much more neatly cropped and does not have my handwriting in it. So it's much more legible as a deck. So please feel free to follow the link down in the description box to go to Make Playing Cards if you are interested in looking at or purchasing this deck. I am still working on the guidebook. If you don't want to get the deck until the guidebook's out, I don't blame you, but the guidebook's going to be free. Okay, that's enough of that. I just spilled all over my own deck. Fortunately, it's in a plastic box, so I'm not fussed about it. But this is a brand new reading cloth, and I just spilled on my brand new dress. So I'm going to go ahead and say, please go check out my Oracle deck. I'll see y'all later. Let me clean this up. Mwah, bye.